Today we're gonna review the Ergatta Lite water-based rower, and I have a lot of thoughts. Despite being someone who actively avoids cardio, I've actually wanted a rower for years. And while Ergatta sent me this rower to review, my opinions, my thoughts are 100% my own. Also, I'm really grateful that they reached out because this is the only way to get my husband on board with having a rowing machine because he does not want any more workout equipment in our house. So thank you, Ergatta. All right, let's dive in and talk about the setup. When you purchase the Ergatta Lite, you have the option to set it up yourself, or you can get it delivered to you professionally assembled. And I believe that is $269 if you live in the US. While that white glove service is very convenient, I don't think you necessarily need it. The setup is straightforward and the instructions are easy to follow. All in, I would say it took a little over an hour to set up. There were two aspects that I had a little bit of trouble with. One, getting the big bulky box up the stairs, and the other was setting up the footboard. The angle you have to put the screws in is funky, and it just felt like it took forever to get it right. And then sliding the foot pad onto the footboard, I was afraid I was gonna break something, but that's actually not what I should have been afraid of breaking. The cable from the rower that connects to the screen broke.
I wonder if it's like really broken, or if that, I'm so sorry. But you saw, like, I barely even touched it and it did that.
And we have no idea how it happened. I think this is a fluke, but I reached out to the company and they immediately sent another water tank and arm combination, whatever this is. And this did the trick. We have had zero issues since. Although this did mean we had to unscrew and rescrew in the footboard, so I got Alex to help me out this time, and he found it just as tedious as I did. And we also got to have the experience of taking the water that we had put in the tank into the new tank. I thought that was gonna be a really frustrating process. It was no big deal at all. Putting the water into the tank and using that siphon went so much faster than I thought it would. Oh, and they give you these water purification tablets. You put one in every 6 months to keep the water from getting nasty. And fun fact, they have a survey that you can fill out on their website. You just enter your order number, your serial number, address, all of that stuff, and they will send you more purification tablets for free. So I went ahead and did that, and I am good for several years. So once you get the actual rower set up, plug it in, connect it to Wi-Fi, which was really fast, by the way. And then you get your membership set up, assuming this is a feature that you want to use. So if you plan on not using the membership, you don't even have to plug it in. I didn't love that they make you enter your credit card information first thing, but I do get it because it's a membership. Okay, but let's get into the fun stuff, the experience with the membership. The first thing they have you do is go through a beginner course, which I really appreciated because I'm pretty new to rowing. I had no concept of form or what the right form was, so they go through that and I found that to be really helpful. Also, the guy who's doing the demonstration, he's wearing Vivo barefoot shoes, and I got kind of excited that I noticed that. It also has you do an initial calibration to set up your training zones and evaluate your fitness level. Once you do all of that, you can access all of the different games and rowing experiences. I'll give a quick rundown of each. First, you have Meteor. It's probably one of my favorite games that they have, and it reminds me of Flappy Bird, if you've ever played that. Next is Pulse. I really like Pulse. It doesn't feel like a game. It honestly feels a little more meditative, but it is still enjoyable. Next is Echo. It's probably my least favorite of the games, which is kind of surprising because it reminds me of Guitar Hero, and I loved playing Guitar Hero as a kid, and I've played it as an adult and I still kind of love it. But the main reason I don't like it as much is because the slower speeds just feel kind of awkward and slow. Then you have two more competitive options. So you have Vortex, which I love this game and it reminds me of Hungry Hungry Hippos, but it does feel very competitive. It's fun. And then you have the traditional race. And it feels like a race, even though the pre-programmed ones, it's not in real time. You're actually competing against other people's times, but it is still really fun and it brings out the competitive spirit I forgot I had. I just worked so hard. I got first place on my first race, feeling pretty pretty good. And I think recently they've added live races. And I'm assuming that because you have to sign up for certain times. And I've done 2 of them, and yes, they're very enjoyable, but they feel like the pre-programmed ones. Competition aside, they also have an open row experience where you can select from different scenic options. And the screen itself, it looks really good. And finally, you can even build your own interval workouts. I have not done this. I have been enjoying all of the pre-programmed stuff, and I just don't feel advanced enough to create my own workouts, but it's an option, and I think that's really cool. I've been really enjoying all of the different options, and the gamification has kept me motivated and engaged during my workouts. And that says a lot because I normally do not enjoy cardio. Now, it might bother some people that there are no instructor-led classes. So if that is something that you're looking for, Ergatta is probably not the right choice for you. But to be perfectly honest, and again, my experience, even if this were an option, I wouldn't use it because I like to listen to music or an audiobook or a podcast while I'm rowing. Now, speaking of listening, let's talk about the sound of the water. I was worried that it was going to be too loud and kind of annoying. To my surprise, I actually find it quite pleasant. Unless you have to pee. Go pee before you get on the rowing machine. Please. It's really not that loud, but watching TV or listening to anything without earbuds or headphones doesn't work that well. Let's get into the nitty-gritty pros and cons of the Ergatta Lite. So we'll start with the pros. First off, this rower is so aesthetically pleasing. It's gorgeous. It looks like a piece of furniture and it makes me feel fancier than I really am. It's also easy to store and maneuver. While this machine is relatively light, it has wheels so you can easily move it around. And yes, the wheels do work on carpet. And you can store it upright so it doesn't take up that much floor space. And honestly, what got Alex on board with all of this was seeing just how attractive the rower is, but seeing that you could store it upright, so the floor space thing wasn't really an issue. Although now that we have the rower, he hasn't said anything about storing it upright, so knock on wood. Let's continue. Now this applies to both rowers that Ergatta has, but they accommodate so many different body types. People up to 6'4" and 320 pounds, you are good to go for the Ergatta Lite. And if you're 6'8" and up to 500 pounds, you can use the other Ergatta rower. I think it's just called the Ergatta rower. That is awesome. Moving on. The games are fun and engaging. I touched on this earlier, but the different games make rowing more enjoyable, and I feel like you are working towards a goal. Like they're in line with the intention of working out. It's not making you forget that you're working out, but it's enhancing the experience. Also, the user interface and user experience overall. The touchscreen itself works really well, and the layout of the different rowing options and your dashboard, you're able to see improvements and track data. It's laid out in a way that's easy to understand. I love me a good dashboard. And finally, built-in Bluetooth. You can connect AirPods and listen to the music options that they've provided, but my music preference is a little too angry, so they don't have that as an option. And you can also connect a Whoop strap or an Apple Watch to track your heart rate, and I have done this with my Apple Watch, and it works really well. And now for the cons. Let's start with the expensive membership. While it's nice that you can have unlimited profiles, I'm really glad that they've done that. That seems fair, but it's still expensive. So for the first year, it's $319 and I believe $348 each year after that. Next is no instructor-led classes. Now this technically is not a con for me, but I know it will be for other people, so it's a con. Next, very limited live races or competition. So like I said earlier, they recently added, I think, a live race experience, but you do have to sign up for it. There aren't a ton of times available. I wonder if this will change in the future, but in general, they're not live experiences. This doesn't bother me too much, but again, it will bother some people more than others. Now we should talk about water maintenance. Now because this is a water-based rower, you gotta add that little purification tablet every 6 months. Or you gotta potentially change out the water. I haven't had this long enough to see, you know, what happens over a long period of time. I am very happy that they provide that purification tablet, but you know that there are going to be people who forget. And I am one of those people who would probably forget, so I put a reminder in my phone. And finally, you can't change the resistance like you can with a magnetic rower. Yes, you can add more water, but there's only so much you can really add. Overall, I am really enjoying and loving the Ergatta Lite. The rower itself is $17.99 US, and that's a nice chunk of money. And then you have the membership on top of that. So it's not cheap. But based on the experience I've had so far and the quality of the build, minus that weird little cable thing, because I do think that was a fluke, I think the price is pretty reasonable. But yes, it is an investment, it is expensive. And even in the 2 months I've been using this rower, I've seen new features coming out, new system updates, but they have the Coach AI experience that will give you feedback on your rowing form. And that gives you data and specific feedback and things for you to work on, and I love that. And apparently I need to work on my rowing form. In the meantime, I've picked out a few other videos that I thought you might enjoy. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.